everyone, welcome to my first installment of an actual urban ecology hike through the city. So this is the inaugural one, and I wish you were all with me, but I'm going to do my best to make it feel like you are with me. So let's talk about where we are. So I'm sitting on the ruins of an old spring house. Pretty cool, eh? And I'm in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, and if I was really thirsty, I might give some thought about drinking this water. As we kind of know, we probably shouldn't drink the water, although this water is way cleaner than all the water that's flowing through our streams right now, because this is behind me, it's underground, and it kind of comes up here. So why are we here? Well, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, get a load of this. Cool, eh? You're just watching me get started, but soon you're going to be watching from my eye level on my new GoPro. So I'm breaking it out on all of you guys. Hope you feel good and honored about that, and I hope it works for you. But that said, I'm sitting here because it's a great vantage point from which to say we're going to now tell the story of a stream in Philadelphia. And the story we're going to tell of this stream in Philadelphia is the same story that you could tell for almost all of Philadelphia's historic streams. Here's easy homework number one for you. Go to the website phillyh2o.org, and it's this amazing website that talks all about Philadelphia's creek history, sewer history, that kind of thing. There's a guy named Adam Levine, not the Adam Levine you guys maybe have all heard of, but another locally famous Adam Levine, who's a consultant for Philly's water department. And he's put together this amazing website that chronicles the history of the growth of Philadelphia's water system, stormwater system, sewage management systems, etc. If you go to phillyh2o.org and you look in his maps section, you will find a couple maps that hopefully will that'll look familiar to you, because when we were back at the Philadelphia at the Fairmount Waterworks, we looked at that graphic that showed Philadelphia's historic streams, then it showed what they look like today, and they showed what's happened in between. So you'll get to see at your own perusal time these maps that are really, really telling about the story of Philadelphia's creeks, how they used to look and how they look now. So go check that out, and that'll really set the tone for what today's walk is all about. So once upon a time, there was this thing called the Wingohocking Creek. And the Wingohocking Creek was a pretty significantly sized creek in Philadelphia. And just like many, many other creeks in Philadelphia, the city decided to, for a variety of reasons, to put it in a big pipe, retire it from surface use, and then blend it into at that time, the newly created Philadelphia sewer system. So we're going to get a sense of what that's all about. So the Wingohocking Creek flows no more, with a couple exceptions, and basically a main exception is where I'm sitting right now. So we're seeing right now a spring, which, if you'll recall, groundwater is the water that's in the ground. It's the area that's saturated is where your water table is. Below the water table, you have saturated soil. When the saturated conditions reach the surface and then turn into surface water, that's where you have a spring. So when groundwater meets the surface and starts flowing from there, you have a groundwater spring. And that's what we're basically looking at here. We're in a section where we have a high water table, as you're going to see on the walk that's going to follow, and the groundwater, which is relatively speaking pretty clean stuff because it's filtered by flowing through the ground, is now reaching the surface. And it was so valuable in the day that here on the site of Arboretum, where I am, there was a house behind me, and they had a spring house here, and the spring house served to refrigerate things, and they probably got their water from this very spring that we're looking at. So in what follows is going to be our story, where I take you through what's left of this Wingohocking Creek, which I gotta tell you right up front, it ain't much, but we're going to still see signs of the Wingohocking Creek, and we're going to see its impacts that it's had on the city to this very day. So stay tuned, and I'm going to hop down, and I'm going to flip you on to my cool fancy new GoPro thing here, and let's see how this gets going when I turn it on. All right, back at the same place, but you don't see me anymore. That's where I was sitting. Let's start checking this stuff out. So how's this spring feel? What do you think? 50, 52 degrees? Feels about right? Check that stuff out. So this is about as clean as the water gets in Philadelphia, because the ground did us the favor of purifying it. But unfortunately, there's still too much impurities and pollutants in the soil. So you'd still have to do something to this water to make it drinkable. But anyway, in some ways, you could say this is one of the few little starting points of the Wingohocking Creek. So where we really are is we are at a starting point of a tributary of the west branch of the Wingohocking Creek. So let's go see what it looks like if we start following this high water table area. By the way, check that tree out. That's buttressing, okay? This is a tree that can live in wet conditions, and aren't trees pretty cool? They're totally entrepreneurial. Look at that. It created those two little triangular sections because the water's going to flow from right to left, and that thing is helping support the tree during high water flow. So great adaptation by a plant. Go figure. So here we are. The water's gone. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Well, let's go see if we can find signs of where that water goes. So straight ahead, you can see what looks like the start of a stream bed. So what's this? Here we are. So, anything under? No stream here, but it's pretty wet. A lot of wet stuff under here. A lot of soil, but no water. So let's just keep following. What do we see here? Look at that. You guys are too young to remember Beverly Hills, the Beverly Hillbillies, when Jed goes out shooting for he's hunting for something, and then he strikes oil, and this is what it looks like in the beginning of the TV show. Go check it out online, Beverly Hillbillies, where the oil starts coming out of the ground. Here, look at this, the water. This is groundwater coming back up. Okay, just upstream from us is where that spring house ruins are, and here we have water, and it looks to me like it might actually be flowing. We have wetland plants growing in it. We got our friendly lesser celandine growing around it, and here you see the water. It's flowing, and it's flowing right underneath this little driveway, or this street area. And here you can see it's really moving. It's really moving. So we have, look at this, it's coming through. I don't mind getting a little wet for you. Look at that. Can you see that? So a nice little tunnel through, and here's our water just flowing through a baby stream. Ain't it cute? That's the cutest little thing I've seen. A spring-fed, groundwater-fed, by Philly standards, healthy spring-fed stream. Another name is a first order stream because it's the stream coming up. Just always curious to see if there's anything underneath. Oh, there's more centipedes. I don't know if one of these days we'll get lucky and we'll find a salamander for you. But here's our stream, and it's really flowing. So let's check out this little sign that I just passed after I show you more of this stream. So bear with me, we're going to come right back here in a second. But look at what took place over here in regard to this stream. Just check this sign out for a second, and you'll see that in the mid-1800s, the Wingohocking Creek and many streams throughout the city were polluted by industry and poor sanitation practices. To protect the public, many streams were encapsulated in pipes and buried deep underground. As the city grew, more and more storm drains and sewers were piped underground and attached to this system. Today, during heavy storms, the system overloads, stormwater backs up, and many streets flood. The practice of daylighting reverses the encapsulation process and returns the stream to its natural state, enhancing important wildlife habitat. So what this sign is telling you is that this area that we just started walking used to be buried until not too long ago. And they actually, given how close to the surface the stream flows, individuals are able to come in here and basically free it up, and which is called daylighting a stream. And so this part of this little stream was recently recreated by virtue of that daylighting process. So that's a beneficial thing. You can't always do that. When your stream is 20 or 30 feet down, daylighting is usually not going to be feasible, as we'll see later on when we get to where the heart of the Wingohocking used to flow. So here's our stream. When they did this restoration project, you can see all these different shrubs around me. So they did a good thing. They put a lot of native plants back in to grow in this stream or spring habitat. So through all this vegetation, a lot of it is a sedge. You see, the water continues to flow. This sign will tell you that it's part of a watershed restoration project. And here you see it refers to the last vestiges of Wingohocking Creek, which is the point of our walk right now. So following the stream just a little bit, we see that it's going to take us to a pipe. And here's that pipe. Okay. The stream's flowing through it. There's a flow there. And then the stream is going to take us across the street. The stream will go has to go underneath Washington Lane, which is what we have to cross right now. So we've got to be careful as we jaywalk. Find our way back into where the stream is. Okay, we're almost back to where the stream is flowing, or should be flowing. Let's confirm that it is in fact flowing. Passing, by the way, this four-posted, looks like a river birch. How cool is that? Good habitat for it, right? A wettish area. Look at the size of this tree. One of the river birches on the site of Aubrey Arboretum, I believe, is this Pennsylvania state champion. Oh, look at that. Here we go. See the sign? I did know what I was talking about. River birch, Betula nigra. So, this or one of the other trees that we might pass they're definitely all among the largest river birches that you'll see in the city. So what do we have here? We have steps of Wissahickon schist going down to water. So let's take these beautiful historic schist steps down. Got to walk in a little bit of water here, and let's check this out. The stream has re-emerged. We have a piece of it re-emerging from the ground right here, and then here's like another little branch, and this, which has water flowing in it, is the stream that we just came from. So this stream, here we go. You can see that robin over there. So here's the other end of the pipe that we showed you on Washington Lane. It comes back in here, and then the stream keeps picking up and it flows. But in areas of high water table, it's very common for the stream to be joined by other small spring-like bodies of water. So let's keep following this beautiful little young stream. You can tell at this vantage point of the two different branches, you're getting more and more flow flowing in the stream right now. What do we have here? Yet another branch. Okay, so again, this is how streams are born. They're usually not just born from one little place that pops in. It's an area, again, where the water that flows underground gets near the surface, and it usually happens in more than one area. So here we have at least 3 branches that have come together, and look at what we have here. We just have more and more water flowing. A lot of algae. So by the way, if all streams got their start this way, streams would be really, really healthy ecosystems. A lot of them do not get such a bucolic start. So this is something that is pretty special to have in what's otherwise a pretty urbanized environment. So we're on the grounds of an old estate, which now is the grounds of Aubrey Arboretum, and it's a protected area. People actually live in parts. There's houses around here, and there's a big set of buildings where this is a working arboretum. But this is a historic site also, and so a lot of people would typically take streams if they flow through their property and create dams and then create ponds out of the stream. So here's what's happening. Our stream now was purposefully channelized a little bit for it to flow down this series of rock. And by the way, the shiny stuff is native. That's our schist, but some of the smoother stuff is not. And concrete certainly is not native. And so it flows in to the stream. By the way, I just saw something kind of cool. We'll point it out. I'll show you this thing that I'm picking up out of the water. See this thing? This is a pull tab. They don't make these anymore. Oh, here's another one. So these, talk about, like, when you wonder, like, how long does it take things to degrade in the environment? Well, these are now illegal. Pull tabs used to be, if you got a can of Coke, this is what you would pull off to to drink your Coke. They're sharp. I could cut my finger on that right now.
and they were outlawed probably in the early 70s, but I could be off a little bit. But when people would come out here, sit around the pond, have a Coke, toss out their trash like everyone's often used to doing, what happened to the tab? Here we are like 40, 50 years later, and you can still find them just as preserved as ever. So we just found a little bit of archaeology while we discovered this little historic pond here. So there's SAV, sometimes you notice in places, stands for submerged aquatic vegetation. We're getting to see that. So there's some healthy goings on early on in the springtime in this little pond back here. So again, remember, water can take different forms. Surface water can take different forms. Is this a pond? Is this a spring? Is it a stream? Well, you could say it's all three, right? It's a stream that was formed by springs coming together because they chose to dam it up. Over here, it's a pond. Now it's a stream again, but it's the same water system. So now look how much water is flowing in the stream. You got a lot of steady flow here. Again, more channelization with they're beautiful blocks of schist, but the stream now is hemmed in on one side. So the stream is sort of flattened out a little bit, but it's still flowing, and we're going to find out how it's kind of been dispersed and what it goes into. So we're looking at last year's Phragmites australis, okay? It's kind of a cool grass. It's not from here, it's from Europe. Look how tall it is. This grass here, if I'm 5'10", what do you say? This is easily 10 feet tall. You see like a basketball net being that high where those last year's flowers are. So this is a big invasive wetland grass called common reed or Phragmites. And so Aubrey Arboretum has always been searching for extra funds over the years. And so we are at a top part of what used to be a beautiful pond, and the pond wasn't kept up. It got what happens to in a lot of situations, silt kept building up, so a lot of soil and stuff kept flowing in, and it sat there because they had created a dam to create the pond, and so the dam causes silt to build up, and then it basically made the pond flatter and shallow, and it gave the opportunity for non-native invasive grass to come in like this. So that's what we have going on here. Let's see what it looks like in the front. So this is the main pond, the main historic pond of Aubrey Arboretum. If you check in hear that beautiful noise and that bird flying? That's a male red-winged blackbird. So red-winged blackbirds are migratory birds. Several weeks they've been in Philadelphia now, looking for places to nest. They love wetland habitats in which to make their nests and raise their young. So you can see we're in a really cool section of this high water table, this pond area. We got weeping willows coming into their greenery. Looks like next to them is probably I should have checked it out when we passed, but it's some kind of a maple looking at the flowers on it. So trees are coming into bloom. This pond, even like 5-10 years ago, had way less Phragmites in it. There used to be a beautiful green heron that hung out here and munched on the frogs that still frequent this pond. And the grass just kept encroaching. There are plans to restore this and clean this out and make it look more like a pond, but they're still waiting for funding, I believe, on that. The greenery that you see coming up here are the start of cattails, which are native to ponds like this in the United States. They're also invasive. Often they're not as invasive as the Phragmites, but that's what you see coming up here. So this pond basically wants to become a marsh, right? It wants to just become full of grass and plants and stuff and not be a pond anymore. And that's what you have going on here. So we follow the pond, and where does it lead? It leads to this spillway, which is what was the lower part that created the dam, that then was used to create this pond. So right now, our flow of water is flowing underneath this spillway, and it's coming out. But we clear these leaves away a little bit. Let's see. We can. Here it is. Here we have you can see all that's, so all this dirty stuff, that's silt, okay? It could be clay, but it's sediment, and that's, oh, and look at this, a crayfish we found. So, boy, this was not pre-planned. Can you guys see this? See him, he's saying hi with that claw there. That was nice of him to do that. All right, guy, I'm gonna let you go back. Enjoy the spillway area, your habitat. See him? I think he's missing a claw yet, but guess what? It's gonna grow back, so don't fret. He's all right. There he goes. See you, cutie. So anyway, now that we found that crayfish, kind of like he was an actor, he's really setting the stage for what's going on here. Here you have all this beauty. You have red-winged blackbirds that you're looking at right now or listening to. There goes one right now. And you have this flowing water, but let's go see. Let's follow the flowing water. Look at all that flow. Oh no, oh no. Here it is, and there it goes. And so what we have here that we're looking at is the water going into the ground, never to be seen again, and from this point forward, as we'll learn a little bit later, it's no longer becoming a flowing stream at the surface. It's actually flowing into Philadelphia's sewer system. So at our next site, we're going to try to pick up and see where this flow might have taken us, but we're going to find that it does not at all look as promising as what we just watched over the last several minutes. Hey everyone, my technical consultant told me that the crayfish that I found earlier might not have been super visible to you guys. So I just thought I'd take my phone out and kind of show you what he looks like. By the way, technical consultant, AKA my son. So there he is. Look at him looking at you saying, hey, sorry we can't, I can tell what he's saying. Sorry I can't see you all in person. Doesn't that coronavirus thing really suck? Yep. Crustaceans are smarter than people give them credit for. So I'm gonna tell him he can go back in the water now. He wants. Oops, there he goes. Okay, go ahead. Oops, there he goes. All right, give him a little bit of leaves. There he goes. Hope you enjoyed it. So here we are at the start of Belfield Avenue. Why am I showing you to this busy, not super attractive intersection? Because if you look down the street where that car is now going. He's going down the western branch of, you guessed it, Wingohocking Creek. Sorry about that Jeep in the way.
I won't be with your camera, yo.
You're not. So Wingohocking Creek is now flowing as a sewer underneath this road called Belfield Avenue. The stream, or the segment of stream that we just saw, flows into this, but when I say this, I mean there's a sewer pipe underneath, and the stream where we just saw our friendly crayfish is now being part of the Philadelphia sewer system that's flowing down Belfield. We'll pick up Belfield in a little bit and see what it looks like further down. So here we are back on Belfield Avenue. When you see a street that curves in Philadelphia, guess that it's a stream underneath. Philadelphia, since its founding days by William Penn and Thomas Holm, his surveyor, was configured on a grid. Crisscross streets, right angles, perpendicular, that kind of a thing. So to this day, most of Philadelphia is built on a grid format. And at times when you see a street that just curves like this, there's a good chance that underneath that street is a pipe that contains a formerly flowing stream. So if you look down here, this is very, very curvy, and we are in what's called Worcester Woods down by LaSalle University, and this is part of Fairmount Park. Not a place that's frequented a whole lot by people. You can kind of see why. There's a lot of traffic here. I was going to try to take us across and check that statue out, but it is the we are now right in the midst of the western branch of the Wingohocking Creek, and so you can get a sense that there's a stream valley here. And as we cross over, this would have been the former banks of the stream. So you would have had these nice woods, just like Philadelphia was formerly all wooded, other than the estuary areas. And there's some really beautiful protruding schist over here, the bedrock around here. And Fairmount Park with all its statuary. Here's something from then, World War I. So here we are in a section of the old riparian way of Wingohocking Creek. Well, here we are in what is known as the Logan Triangle. We're in the neighborhood of Logan, which is a section of North Philadelphia. To my right over there in the distance is the Roosevelt Boulevard. Roosevelt Boulevard is Route 1. It runs through Philadelphia. It also runs up and down the coast from Maine down to Florida. This is called the Logan Triangle because if you checked it out from an aerial perspective, it's pretty much a triangular piece of vacant land. It happens to be probably the city's largest parcel of vacant land at about 45 acres. So we'll talk more about the story of Logan and how it connects intimately with the story of the Wingohocking Creek. Now, if you look down this street here, North 11th Street, can you see that the road goes down to a degree? It hits a stop sign, and then it sort of goes back up to a degree. So what we're looking at is, from a very historic standpoint, we're looking at where the Wingohocking Creek used to flow. So at the low point of what we're looking down at, that's where the creek would flow through here, through this town, or this neighborhood called Logan, and it would make its way towards the Tacony Creek of Philadelphia. So we're in a spot where the creek is flowing underground. So let's take a walk around this area that looks like it does, as you can see, called the Logan Triangle, and check it out. So sometime around the late 1870s is when the city decided that it was going to put Wingohocking Creek into a large pipe and make it part of the city's sewer system. That project, start to finish, took almost 50 years to complete. It was massive. If you go check that Philly H2O website, you can see some really cool pictures of what some of these sewer pipes look like. We'll in fact see what one of the largest outfalls in the entire city looks like towards the end of our walk. So the city, in the name of progress, puts a major stream called the Wingohocking in the ground, in a pipe, buries it for good. In this area, in the section known as Logan, the creek was put in a pipe, just like everywhere else. And then over here, a neighborhood was built over it. The neighborhood looked just like the neighborhood that we can see across this field. You can see those houses. That's how everything looked. So, turn of the century, meaning turn of the 20th century, late 1800s, early 1900s, a strong neighborhood called Logan was created and served as a really strong neighborhood until around the 1980s. What you see here is all that remains of formerly almost 1,000 row homes spread out over that 45 acres that's now all this vacant, grassy covered land. So what the city decided to do in this section was, if you think about how streams flow, they flow in what? They flow in valleys. And so the Wingohocking Creek had, flowed in a valley. In some places, maybe you had to go 20 feet or so down to get to where the stream ran. So when you fill in a stream and then you want to put houses over it, you can't just put the stream in a pipe and then go from there, because you'd be left with a steep valley. So the city encloses the stream in a pipe, encapsulates the pipe, and then it buries, and then it's left with a valley to fill. So what does it do then? It gets fill from wherever it can. Now fill, the definition of fill is not precise. It's anything. It's basically just anything that you can fill a hole with. So the geniuses at the time of when the city was putting the stream in a pipe, those geniuses decided, hey, there's a material that we have like unlimited supplies of. It's free, and it could fill the hole on top of which we can build the new Logan neighborhood. So that free material is something called coal ash or fly ash. Now, when you burn coal, you are left with a residue that when it's dry, if you can picture like the flour that's in your cupboard in your kitchen, that's the consistency of coal ash. Coal ash is very, very like flour-like. Think about when you touch flour when it's dry and the residue that's on your hand. How much structure do you think flour has? How much, when I say structure for, you know, supporting like the foundation of a house. You're right, it's not much at all. So the city filled this entire area with largely coal ash and then a mix of whatever other materials that it could mix with it, cinders and dirt and stuff like that. That's what filled the Wingohocking Valley. And then through all the areas that we're walking right now, you had houses here. So you had, like, you know, street after street after street of 950 or so families living, you know, in these houses. Logan became a really solid middle-class neighborhood for many years and continued that way, and it until basically in the around sometime in the 1980s. So what happened along the way was, at different points in time, people started noticing that something like, hey, my porch doesn't line up with my neighbor's porch anymore. His or hers is a little lower than mine, or mine's a little bit lower than his. Hey, my floors aren't level anymore. What's going on with that? Well, what was happening was houses started to settle, because when you build like they did on top of this coal ash material, the coal ash was settling underground. Water would, you'd get rain, water would infiltrate into the ground. It would basically, it would cause that coal ashy material to settle, to erode away. And so houses that were built flat no longer stayed flat. So by the middle of the 20th century, you started having what's called subsidence, or, you know, basically houses subsiding. And then on top of that, you had people continuing to live there. And then over time, you had gas mains that exploding. Because if you have gas pipes underground, and if the ground settles in a certain way, your pipes can come disconnected. And then if a spark, you know, hits the gas, the natural gas that's flowing, it can cause an explosion. So that happened a few times. By the 1980s, there was a pretty major explosion that happened in Logan, and this time some individuals got killed in the process. And so the city decided it really needed to do something drastic. And so the city ended up using the legal means called eminent domain, and it basically bought up all this land. It basically told the people here that whether you want to or not, you need to relocate. We're going to give you what the market says your house is worth, but you got to go. It's an emergency, and that's and there's just no choice in the matter. So in the late 80s, the city made that decision, and over the next 10 or 20 years, they proceeded to knock down houses. People needed to move, and what you see now is what Logan looks like. over the last several decades, the city has made several promises to the community that it was going to rebuild this area, and that really hasn't happened. And there's just been a string of continuing promise after promise, but nothing has happened. What also has happened, as you can see, is that this area has become quite blighted. Let's see what this sign says that we're coming to. Can't see it too well, but I can help you if you can't see through the graffiti. We just walked on private property where it says no dumping, parking, or trespassing. Penalties include a maximum $50,000 fine, maybe imprisonment, I think it looks like over there. You also have signs over that you can see. Like, see that truck over there? Do you think that truck is going anywhere anytime soon? No, there's probably somebody sleeping in it right now. There's like a curtain drawn. And so instead of going to a truck stop, trucks have found that it's totally fine to do what this sign says here. They park here. But lots of the trucks park here overnight, and nobody really does anything about it. So that's what has happened to the Logan Triangle over a course of time. It's just been neglected. And the unfortunate people that live around it continue to do so with this big blight in the middle of their neighborhood. London plane is one of the most common street trees in Philadelphia. This was called Hutchinson Street. There's a couple surviving London planes. They were in the front of people's houses. The houses are no more, the trees still stand there. See this? This is illegal. This is called dumping. Now, if you were doing some construction and you dug out this mess here and you wanted to get rid of it legally, what you would do is you would go to a construction debris landfill, a place that's a legal spot for you to take construction waste, different from municipal solid waste, the kind of stuff that you throw out at your house and the trash company picks up. You bring this in a truck, you weigh the truck, they make a calculation of how many pounds it weighs, and they charge you to dump your waste there. But if you can come here and dump this at night and nobody catches you, you just saved yourself a lot of money. And so this area has become notorious as a major dumping ground, even though dumping is illegal and the signs say no dumping. It's become a major truck stop, even though the signs say no truck parking, especially overnight truck parking. But if things like that aren't enforced, then they become basically allowed, even though, again, they're not legally allowed. So back to streams for a second. Is it really progress to take a stream that was flowing as beautifully as we saw a piece of headwaters from one of the tributaries that fed Wingohocking Creek back when we were in Germantown? Or is something like this, is this better? Taking the chance of, we're taking an area, filling, like basically cutting down all the trees, taking the stream, putting it into a big pipe, and then filling the area with a material that not only does it have poor construction qualities from a structure standpoint, it also is loaded with heavy metals. So coal ash has things like lead in it when it as a residue. It has mercury, it has arsenic and things like that. So it's not at all the same thing as taking some dirt that was excavated on a site and using that. It's anything but. So empathize for a second. We're walking back on North 11th Street at the Logan Triangle to my left. You got intact houses to the right. They happen to be in the area where it was determined that subsiding of houses ceased to happen. So they were not moved out. These houses obviously were not knocked down. Empathize. This is what you look out on. You're still living here. What happened to your property value after the Logan Triangle was basically unintentionally formed? How would you feel if you were regularly told by the city that we're going to get a developer in here? We're going to build something that has a supermarket. We're going to build something that has a place to play basketball. We're going to build retail. We might put some housing here. How would you feel about that? Only to be shown plan after plan after plan, and then all you see is what you still see here. Lots of plans happening, but no action. And so right now where this stands is there's a developer that's called the Goldenberg Group. For probably the last 5 years or so, they're the ones that have the option to build here. The market has not supported any kind of type of development that they know how to do. Chances are what they're looking to do is something that would have big box stores like a Lowe's, like a ShopRite, like they've done in another section of West Philadelphia. But the market is just not allowing for that. On top of that, how do you build a set of big box stores, other retail stores, a parking lot on top? How do you build that on top of coal ash? Can you do it? Well, you can kind of do anything if you have the money, but if you're going to do that in a place like this, you need to drive pilings down, in some cases 40, 50 or more feet, to get to bedrock or to get to a secure area so that you can then, let's take a look at what this truck is over here.
No.
You think that's about to be dumped? They parked it and left it here, right? Okay. So tonight we might see that here.
Huh?
So tonight we might find that on the ground here, is what you're saying.
What on the ground?
Are they gonna? It looks. I don't know if they're gonna dump that, like it's busted refrigerators and stuff.
It's been here for. Why would that be on the ground?
Oh, they just. Oh, they're not dumping. They just left their whole thing here.
Just left the whole truck here.
Okay, typical. So.
You want to take it?
I don't got the keys. I don't know how to hotwire it.
Hey, listen, they took the batteries out. The fucking damn thing say 2018 on the windshield,
so it's here to stay until the city moves it.
It's an inside tire. Look, see the inside tire here? Look at this tire.
Wow, oh, that ain't going anywhere.
You understand me? So I mean, look at the ride on this tire. But if you can take this motherfucker, man, that'd be great.
Well, we could call 311 and have the city pick it up. That's probably about the best bet. So.
I mean, they parked it on the corner, and there's almost accidents here, like, because people be coming turning here, and people be coming this way, and they can't see each other.
Right.
All day long, it's almost accidents here, every day. So, I don't know who the fuck dropped it. They've been here for about 3 weeks now.
Okay. My nonprofit does some work here. We can at least try to make the push and let the people know in the city that they ought to at least move this thing out of here.
Yeah.
So.
Shit. I wish somebody do something, man.
I don't blame you.
What?
Yeah, I know. It sure is. Thanks for the explanation, though. So that's kind of the real life of what's going on here in Logan. How do you feel if you're that resident that lives here? So this truck has been here for three weeks, he says. So instead of dumping, somebody just basically dumped their truck here. Back to that idea of how do you put a big box shopping center a la the suburbs on top of coal ash. Well, it becomes a very expensive proposition, because like I was saying, you need to take these pilings and you need to do extra construction in order to make that happen, and be able to secure the weight of the stores and things like that you put on top. So the market's saying it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So what do you do in a place like this? One little thing that was done was, look at that, there's a red-winged blackbird right next to this thing over here. So last June, my nonprofit, who had been doing work in Logan, kind of got tired of nothing happening here. And so we said, let's do a social experiment. And in conjunction with a program that I was doing for Friends Select, a bunch of 5th graders, one day the teachers and someone else who's in charge of city programs for at Friends Select asked me, could I put together a program for the kids that would involve social justice, a little bit of nature involved. And I said, do you mind if they trespass on vacant land? And the teachers at Friends Select said, no, we don't mind. So I said, let's do a social experiment. What'll happen if we put in a couple places to grow native plants like these, and to grow vegetables like these? So what we ended up doing was, with the 5th graders, we put these beds in, these raised beds, and we proceeded to put them in and see what would happen. And lo and behold, here we are, and it's March, and they're still here. I can tell you, trust me, that this bed over here, it grew countless tomatoes and peppers. The bed over here grew other vegetables. We had squash growing out of here. We had a lot of basil. And then we decided to, when the fall plants died back with the frost, we put in arugula and kale and stuff like that. And look at it, the winter didn't seem to bother it at all. We put a little, we have the tarp off right now, but we built a little hoop house for it. But the lettuces, this is the lettuces. The neighborhood stopped coming here over the winter recently, and so we could go bend down and eat these lettuces right now. But that's what we did. The story here is also that the city kind of got mad at us, and in the fall, the redevelopment authority, who controls this land, they said, hey, you guys trespassed. I said, hey, I know. They said, what are you gonna do about it? And I said, I don't know, what are you gonna do? You're gonna just take our garden down? And they said, no, we can't do that because the people like it too much. I mean, we already have not such a great reputation given what's been going on here. So we're not quite sure what to do, but we're not in a position to take it down. So the long story cut short on that one is that after some discussions with the city, they now have put in front of us an opportunity to get some other vacant land. So you can see where we are in the distance. We're at 11th and Cortlandt Street. They've offered us the equivalent of 3 connected vacant lots on Cortlandt Street. They'd like to let us have that and relocate our garden there because they don't really want us, they're worried about liability. I already said that there's coal ash here. Our beds are perfectly fine to eat vegetables out of because we have a liner underneath the soil here, so we don't let the roots of the plants that we grow interact with the soil. But as we speak right now, we're in the negotiation stage of potentially taking on some vacant land that they want to give us because they still now want the community to have a park and have an area to grow. They just don't want it to be here. So we'll see where that goes. Overall, this is what Logan Triangle looks like today. And if you ask me what it's going to look like next year, I'm going to tell you right now it's probably going to look just like it is now. The idea of the guerrilla garden that we did was really to try to get some awareness, and we'll see where it goes. You know, can we spark some other discussion about what you might do here that's less intrusive and less expensive than a big box shopping center. What would you do if you were here? Could you turn this back to a park? Could you turn this into tiny houses, something which could be really cool, and they don't have that much weight? Could you restore the stream here? Wouldn't that be cool? The problem with that is that the stream being about 30 feet down, it would be really hard to daylight the stream here because then you'd have to climb down quite a steep hill to get to it. So, but think about it. What would you do if you were given 45 acres here? In which to make better. For our final stop that involves the story of the Wingohocking Creek, we are at Furco Playground in the Juniata Park section of Philadelphia. This cool 50s architecture is a pavilion that houses a place to eat on the other side, restrooms. Got a playground over here. Not a lot of playground activity when you got a virus going around. But this is a really important rec center for this neighborhood. We're here because we are on the edge of Wingohocking Creek Park, which is one of the important city parks of Philadelphia. And guess what flows through it? Wingohocking Creek. So Furco Playground is an important place for recreation for the community, but we're going to go see what lies behind Furco Playground and then see why it ties to the end of the Wingohocking Creek story. Hey, Robbins. I'm not really sure why a fence was put up along the banks of the Wingohocking Creek, which is where we're heading right now. And then we have to sort of make our way through this cut fence. Seems to me you would call attention to it, but it isn't, I guess, part of the official Wingohocking Creek Park, which is just a little bit upstream from where we are. So I need to partially correct myself from what I said a minute ago about Wingohocking Creek. Technically, this is Frankfort Creek. Spring love is in the air. See that? The two mallards. There they go. Down, to be correct, Frankfort Creek. You'll see what I mean in a second. That's looking downstream of Frankfort Creek, which makes its way to the Delaware River. By the way, its greenness basically dies out a little bit further down from here. There's the Juniata Golf Course. I might be wrong on the exact name of it. I'm not a golf player, but it's one of the city-owned golf courses that butts up right against the stream. So we're looking at something that marks the end of the Wingohocking Creek story. Let's see if we can get closer to what we want to focus on. I told you guys, it's okay to slip. I just slid, caught myself. By the way, when it floods, and we're on the floodplain, you can tell, can you tell from this view, which way the water flows? It flows down. The trash you see here was not put here on the spot. It came from somewhere else. See this trash right here? I'm going to tell you that there's a good chance that it didn't even come from the surface. It may be an outflow from the sewer, which is what we're heading to check out right now. There's a lot of bugs in the air, and guess what they are? I can't tell exactly which kind, but they have just hatched out. They're called macroinvertebrates. They live in the stream in their larval state. I don't know how easy or hard it is to see. It's probably hard to see through my GoPro, but now they're flying as adult insects, but they used to be living in the stream. When people ask me what I do, I almost never give the same answer, but a lot of times what comes out is, rather than saying I'm an ecologist, I often say I'm an urban ecologist. You know, so what is urban ecology? Well, I think we're kind of looking at urban ecology right now. Obviously, there's kind of a mix, at least it would suggest there might be a mix of like natural ecosystems and non-natural or urbanized ecosystems. And that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at an urban ecosystem for sure. We're seeing a lot of life, and we're seeing a lot of grody stuff as well. So what's up ahead is a couple of things, actually 3 things. You see that tunnel structure there? I'll talk about that in a sec. To the right of it is the Tacony Creek. Right in front of us, all the way down where those geese are, all the way down to where we just looked before, that's the Frankfort Creek. Well, in historic times, the Frankfort Creek was formed at the meeting point, the junction between the Tacony Creek and, you guessed it, Wingohocking Creek. So that massive tunnel structure that we're looking at represents the vestiges of the outfall, or basically the mouth, of Wingohocking Creek. Right now it doesn't look like there's any flow coming out of that, but this vantage point right here, we have basically it's the end technically of Tacony Creek Park behind that tunnel over there. And technically it's the end officially of Tacony Creek. By the way, the Tacony Creek is called the Tacony Creek in Montgomery County. It crosses the city line. Both words are derived by the same Lenape word, but the Tacony becomes the Tacony, and then it would have joined up, if time stayed natural, with the Wingohocking, and then forms the Frankfort Creek, which flows into the Delaware. So let's see how close we can get to try to figure out what that structure is, and also how it works, and then how it really relates to what the Wingohocking Creek used to be. So why don't you join me as I make my way to see how close we can get to the structure itself. If I slip, I slip. That's the beauty of this tape. And I promise you I won't edit it out. But let's go see if we can make our way along this nice outcrop of Wissahickon schist covered with moss, and get ourselves close to that mammoth urban ecological wonder, the outfall of Wingohocking Creek. Now, is that a wonder or not? Remember, even in Rachel Carson's book, The Sense of Wonder, I know she's talking about all the warm and fuzzy stuff, like walking over nice wet moss and, you know, interacting with wildlife and stuff. Although there's some cool robins going at it together. this to me is also like quite a wonder. It's not one that I'm thrilled exists, but when you think about it, a 50-year-old project, which was building this whole entire sewer system around a creek, is quite a feat. It's quite a feat of that defeats a lot of nature, but it's still quite an engineering marvel nonetheless. We're looking at the largest outfall, is what it's called, in the city of Philadelphia. I believe this is 24 feet from the base to the top. If we're able to do a virtual kayak of the lower Schuylkill, you'll get to see the second largest outfall in the city, which is that of Mill Creek. If we're lucky enough to go out on the water together, sorry you guys won't be with me, we'll actually be able to kayak into that. This one you can't do unless this were flowing, at which point, we'll talk in a second, we wouldn't necessarily want to be kayaking in it. So welcome to the sewer. Yes, we are in the sewer system of Philadelphia. What's that noise? Not the geese. Hear that water flowing? You know what that is? Mostly, it's raw sewage, okay? Mixed with that, stormwater, if there was any recent storms, which I believe there were. Mixed with that, any kind of flow that was part of Wingohocking Creek. So possibly the only natural flow that's in that water that you hear is what we saw way back at Aubrey Arboretum. It went into the ground, became part of the sewer system. So the way this all works is Philadelphia has something called a combined sewer system. And what that means is this sewer system combines both stormwater and sewage. So under normal conditions, you flush your toilet, it goes through a pipe, it makes its way into the sewer system, and it goes to the wastewater treatment plant or the sewage treatment plant, where it gets treated to a degree, and then it gets released back out, probably as secondary treated water into the Delaware River in our case. So if you live in Logan and you wash your dishes or you flush your toilet, what we're hearing behind us, that's Logan water, wastewater flowing past us. So what happens when you get a storm? Well, if you get a light storm, that stormwater goes into the sewer system. It goes into a street grate. It enters the sewer system, and it gets treated at the sewage treatment facility that Philadelphia has. It's all well and good. But what happens when you get a pretty decent sized storm, but not that big, just a typical storm that Philadelphia gets a lot of? Well, at a certain point, the way this is designed is you get street water coming in from the surface flow of rainwater that has nowhere else to go other than into storm sewers. Why does it have nowhere else to go? Because we've developed most of the city into asphalt and concrete and houses and such. Only left a few parks. So where is the water going to go? It's going to go to the low point. It's going to go into the, so basically it's going to get sucked into the sewer system. So that, and while that will normally flow to the sewer treatment plant, when you get a certain size storm, the sewage water and effluent and the storm water, they mix. At a certain point behind this garage door looking structure, if you get a certain size storm, if it gets heavy enough, there's a mechanism that's designed into the system. If we kept this thing totally up and the water was not allowed to come out where I am right now, then sewage would pop back up into people's basements and go right back into their houses, which would not be too pretty for the residents of Philadelphia. So the ingenious nature of this is that when it gets to a certain point of too much flow, the overflow, the outflow, flows untreated right where I'm standing right now, raw, into Tacony Creek, or in this case into Frankfort Creek. But basically what you're looking at is where Wingohocking Creek used to come out. It's now turned into a sewer system, but at this point here is where when you get too much rain, you basically get a mixture of sewage water, sewage waste, and municipal just storm water, all running out here at the same time. So the other day we had some pretty serious rain. There's a good chance that this stuff that we're seeing here is left over from things that washed out where I'm standing now. If it rains a lot, it's supposed to rain this weekend, I believe. This whole area is an area that I might not want to be standing. So this is what you get when you put a creek in the ground, you put a sewer system in place of the creek, and you design your sewer system to combine, and then you get large population growth like you do in Philadelphia, to the point where at some point you have raw sewage unfortunately making its way into the stream. So this is the view. Had we been canoeing down Wingohocking Creek, we would like we maybe would have done up until 1879, or I'm not sure when this was built, maybe a little later, but until the late 1800s, this would have been our view, where we join up with Tacony Creek, and we'd be looking at Frankfort Creek making its way down to the Delaware. So this ends our story of Wingohocking Creek.